So I wanted to come in and do this training because it is one of the most overlooked strategies, if you like, with students. And this training is all going to be about study plan. Students don't really know what a study plan is. They don't know how to create a study plan, how to use it. This like vaguely do timetables, but don't know much about study plans. So that's why I think this is really important. I did a similar training last year, but this year I'm doing it early because I think it's, especially with everything that's happened this year, it's very important for students to start planning early. What do I know about study plans? Why am I sort of an expert in this? Well, after working with students for several years, 8 years, I've been a science teacher and a tutor and worked with hundreds of students over that time. I can completely assure you that the students who don't do as well, or the students who don't reach their potential, they are the ones that don't have a clear plan, a clear path to follow. And that's why I'm really big on study plans. And I'll go a lot more into this as we go along, but it's just really, really super important to help students with overwhelm, right? So I know quite a lot about study plans. I have worked with my students over the years with study plans. I'll show you at the end, me helping my students as well with this. So I'm literally going to dive right in, and I will share this slide with you. Right. So to talk about study plans, then I'm going to take you on a journey, and I want you to think of you driving from one part of the UK to another, from London to Birmingham, from London to Scotland, right? What do? Do you just jump in your car and go on that journey, or do you check your fluids, check your brakes, check your mirror, check your oil, take a spare tire with you, right? Now, this is what you would naturally do. But when students are in school, they don't do that. They don't think about that planning. They just literally dive right in. Diving right in leads to overwhelm. It leads to not knowing how to course correct. It leads to not knowing if they are on track, not knowing whether they need to make a change, and even if they know they need to make a change, not knowing how to make that change. Something I did recently with myself and my tutoring that I'm doing, I sat down, and it took me a very short time. Study plan might take a bit longer, but I just planned my year ahead. I took a calendar and I planned the entire year to say, this is what I'm going to be doing around this month. This is what I'm going to be doing around this month. These are the different things that I'm going to be doing. And as I finished that, I just felt like, that overwhelm, I could breathe, right? And this is exactly the same with creating a study plan. Students don't want to do it because it takes a lot of time, because they know, because they have to be, they're going to be faced with the fear, they're going to be faced with the all the stuff that they need to do. But once they do it, they're going to see it right in front of them, and they're going to be able to, they're now going to start thinking of, okay, what are the strategies that they need to use to get there, because they essentially have a roadmap, right? Another story, just sort of quickly throwing it in, I helped somebody with budget recently. I was told that I'm good at budgeting, apparently. And I helped somebody with budgeting, and, he just basically, it was just like, okay, let's get a spreadsheet, let's get Excel, open it up and just put expenses. And then by the next day, he came back to me and said, oh, wow, I've cut my internet bill in half. I've cut my phone bill massively from, like, I don't know, £30 to £6 or something. And that was that kind of putting it on a piece of paper and feeling that fear, but then realizing, well, I've got to do something about this, right? And then it kind of forced his brain to do something about it. For somebody who thought, well, I'm not good at budgeting, by seeing that on a piece of paper, it really forced him to do something about it and take the steps. And that is exactly study planners. You have a roadmap to follow, right? You have all your plans, all the steps going on a journey so that you don't get stuck, right? And if you get stuck, you know how to navigate, you know how to course correct. You don't go into a panic, right? So this is the reason why I am really, really keen on study plan, because if students don't plan, they don't know what to do. They get stuck, they get overwhelmed, and anxiety comes in because they don't know how to get there. They don't know when to get there. They don't know which methods to take, and they don't know if they are on track. And students are often not aware of exactly what they need to do, right? Exactly what they need to cover. And as I said, they don't know how they don't know whether they're on track. And this is where the entire anxiety comes in, because they don't have a sat nav, right, to help them. And this is why the whole planning is important. So this is what I'm literally going to talk about today. I'm going to jump right in, and we're going to look at when students need to start, what they need to cover, what topics they need to focus on, which order they need to cover those topics, and then what changes that they need to make if that happens, right? So yeah, I'm literally going to give you the key steps, right? You're going to have that sat nav, and I'm going to give you 3 key steps that students need to use to create a study plan that will massively, massively help them. I really believe this is one of the main, if not the main thing that they should actually do, particularly by the time they get to like end of year 10, year 11. So yeah, we're going to talk about the key steps for your child to create a study plan so that they can be confident they will cover all the topics on time, which will then eliminate anxiety. So the first step is to identify the key content that needs to be covered. And just to make that a bit clear to you, I'm just going to grab one of the specifications. And this is AQS specification. And you can, if you see there at the top, it's 198 pages. So pretty much your child needs to learn 200 pages of content by their exams, right? That is a heck of a lot. And so this is why it's important to plan it out, because students kind of know that they have a lot to cover. They don't do the planning, they put it aside, they're scared of it. And so, like I say, they just dive in, okay? And this is where the overwhelm takes over. It's where the anxiety takes over, and they're not really sure what they're doing. So a 200 page, think about that. It is a huge amount. But this is why the first step is to plan that out, is to put that on paper, right? So, I just wanted to give you an example. This is AQA specification. The other specifications are going to be exactly the same thing, or pretty much the same thing. And an easy one to just figure out, you don't necessarily need to go to the specification to plan that out, because I just put that there so you can see how big it is. Using a textbook, right, it's really good. So if you have a look at your textbook, if a child opens up the textbook, look at the contents page, that would give an idea of just how much content that they have to do, right? So the first thing is identify what content they need to be covered. And to be more specific, the contents page will suffice, right? The content page would be enough, and the idea is to transfer this to a paper so you know exactly what you need to cover, okay? And when you put this down on paper, it does help. So, I gave an example earlier on about me just sitting down recently and planning out my year, and I really felt like, that overwhelm and that stress has completely gone, right? And once they see that, then they can now be, I was talking as well about budgeting, right? Once you put something down on a piece of paper, you can now see, okay, this is where the problem is. This is where I need to go. This is what I need to do. This is what I need to change. That's all forms part of that key step to identify the key content that needs to be covered, right? They're literally facing the fear or feeling the fear and doing it anyway. The second step is to identify the amount of time they have to cover the curriculum. I don't know, amount of time, apologies. The amount of time the student has to cover that content. So this is why I'm doing this early. This is why I'm doing this now, because I don't want any student to start now. It's August, have a break, chill out, rest. But say we start from September and we need to, go until April. That's about 8 months, which is really not enough, right? An entire academic year is only 8 months. It's not an entire year. And so it's really important that A, you identify the amount of time they have to cover the curriculum, but B, start now, right? And remember, I'm talking about a 200-page curriculum, right? So it's really, really essential that we start it now. And depending on the amount of time that you have, whether you start now or, in September, you have 8 months, or you start within 6 months, that would kind of determine your revision strategy a little bit as well. So if you have a tighter time, then okay, we need to really hone in on the things that I'm struggling with the most, right? I hope that that's making sense. I feel like I'm talking a lot today. I'm all over the place, but I hope it makes sense. So if you have a tighter time, you can really hone in. If you have more time, then more room for you to really focus on everything and cover everything. So that's why it's really important to identify the amount of time that the child has to cover the curriculum, because I have no idea why, and maybe some of your parents listening here, you might know why, but it surprises me that year after year after year, students leave their revision till the last minute, right? And if you leave it till April, there's only so much you're going to be able to get out of it, right? So you need to start now. You need to start thinking about how much time you have to plan that out now, because that way it's just going to be so much more realistic, right? If you're, we talked about, when I started, I talked about journey. Well, how long does it take to drive from here to Scotland? 8 hours, I think it's about 5 hours on the train. I don't know if it's maybe 8 to 12 hours, but realistically, you can't say, boom, I'm going to go from London to Scotland in 3 hours. And that's what a lot of students do. They say, well, in April, I'm going to learn 3 years / 200 pages worth of content, right? Not realistic. You can only get so much out of it. So start early and be realistic. The third step is to calculate how much content you can cover over that specific time. So let's just say, for instance, we have 6 months and we have 12 topics to cover in 6 months. Then you have 2 topics per month. Here's the thing though, because science is not just sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, the student has 3 topics, 6 topics per month. Yeah, so I hope that makes sense. So 12 topics in 6 months, 2 topics per month, but that's per subject. So that is 6 topics. So again, that's why particularly for science, I highly, highly recommend getting a study plan. If a child starts saying in September, you're looking at about 8 months, you're looking at about 15 topics for that 8 months. So maybe about 2.5 topics a month. So you can see then why it's so important to plan this out. And this is the reason why time and time again, students just learn what they're comfortable with. They just focus on what they know, because really sort of digging it in and realizing that they have a lot to do, it overwhelms them and it puts them off. So if you have the plan, you've actually planned out, okay, this is how many topics I need to do over this amount of time, then that's going to guide you, then that's going to keep you on track. Same as if you're driving to Scotland and you've got your spare tire with you and everything, it's going to guide you. You've got your sat nav, it's going to keep you on track, right? It is the exact same thing, and it's really important. And then within those topics now, students can start to focus on what are the hardest topics, or what are the topics that I find challenging. They can then hone in on that, okay? And then this is basically it. You then fill everything in on a spreadsheet or a document, a Microsoft Word document. I prefer to use a spreadsheet because it's a lot more easy to manipulate. But that's basically it. So here's me here. This was my students, some of my students last year, actually going through them. And I'm going to do the same thing with my current students soon. Top left-hand corner, you could see we were using the Edexcel curriculum here, literally going through, okay, what are your topics? How many key topics do you need to follow? I think with them, they had about 6 months, yeah, because we gave them some time and they had about 6 months. And on the right-hand side, that is me planning out, mapping out, okay, what topics can you cover in month 1, month 2, and so on and so forth. And then down here, this was me literally taking them through how they can create a study plan. So I started with a biology with them, and then we moved on to the chemistry and the physics. But guys, that is basically it. That is your journey. I really hope this was helpful. What I'm going to do is I am going to, well, basically for those of you watching now, I will have a study plan template that I can give you, much like the one that I've just shown. All you need to do, all your child needs to do, is just input the key topics into them, right? So yeah, if you're interested in that, let me know.